Before us is the Committee on Electoral Matters, headed by distinguished Senator Lalong, who is the chairman of the committee, and he is accompanied by the clerk of the committee. He is here to submit the budget estimate for the Independent National Electoral Commission. As we all know, the importance of INEC, not only in the conduct of election, but the fact that for us to have a free, fair, and transparent election that is going to be a replica of the wishes and aspirations of the people, there is a need for us to fund INEC adequately to discharge its constitutional responsibilities. And the committee is here before us to defend the budget estimates of the committee. And if there are any areas in the opinion of the committee that will crave for the indulgence of the appropriation committee to intervene with a view to giving them succor towards the discharge of their constitutional responsibilities, the committee is ready to hear that. So against this background, I hereby invite our most respected and one of our elders in APC, distinguished Senator Bako Lalong, former speaker, former governor, former minister, former DG campaign. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I am able, very distinguished members of this committee on appropriation, including, I just saw Kingibe, she left, the Senator Kingibe. First, Mr. Chairman, let me congratulate all of you and also Kingibe for a very successful election of the FCT that came up last week. And we are hoping that whatever the lapses there will also be improvement, because we are expecting a very, very good election with the recent amendment and the enactment of the new Electoral Act. Mr. Chairman, you can see from this budget that there are two submissions. The first submission is in respect to the budget proper. That is the one, when I say proper, 2026 budget. In 2026 budget, there was a proposal of 171 billion, but it was cut off to 140 billion. And then if you move to the second aspect, that is the one that concerns the general election. So you find out that that one too, the proposal is there of the sum of 873 billion 778 million naira. That is for general election. So the two of them are coming up together. Now, if you look at it, you will realize that this budget was done, especially, let me take the first budget, 2026 budget, 171. To us, even the 171 increase was modest increase. Looking at also the value of the naira and also so many things that came up after the last election. So you can see on our page 1 of the attachment, you will see the increase, proposed budget increase are all there. And in terms of the capital, allowances generally, the social contributions and utilities and material supplies and everything now has increased. Side by side with that, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that, you know, when you upgrade the salaries and allowances of civil servants, the ad hoc staff also agitated. NYSs today, if you ask them what they are collecting to conduct election, is a peanut. So we are also talking about seeking the permission of this committee for an increase for the proposed ad hoc staff. You recall that when we were considering the law, we said sometimes temptation, if you don't give people good allowances, they are tempted to collect bribes at the conduct of election, during the conduct of election. So with all that in view, that is what led to 171 billion. But the budget committee cut it to 140. And one thing also, let me emphasize, in the bill now, if there is a candidate is declared disqualified, it is rerun. It's no longer the second person. So it means that we are expecting a lot of reruns in that election. It is not easy to conduct a rerun. Even now, with unfortunate death of our members, you can see it is very, very difficult and very expensive to conduct a rerun. So if we are considering, already is considered and passed, that if a candidate is disqualified by tribunal, it is a rerun. We are expecting a lot of reruns in that election. So with that in view, you will see the need why INEC was very, very objective in looking in the future by increasing it to a modest sum of 171. But 140 will not be enough to conduct this, the election if we have been fair to them. And so those were some of the things that made up the amount to 171. So instead of 141, we want an increase of this one is for.
This one is 4 billion for general election. This is a capital budget.
Yes. So in this, we have the capital project or proposal in 2026 of 1,466, while the general election has a capital proposal of 154 billion. So these ones are all stated there. So if you look at that, you know that in general election, even if they can give you a fair view of what happened even last week, if you ask INEC to give you a report today, it is a different matter. So the expenses are increasing every year, and that is why you are not expecting a different one in 2026. So, Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, these are the summary of INEC for 2026 and summary for INEC for the general election 2027. So I shall submit, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.
Ireti Kingibe, representing the Federal Capital Territory. I was going to say that actually the devices are not, we may need to buy a few additional devices, but for the most part, they all just need software upgrade. That's basically, yes, the technology that is to be used in 2027 is much improved, but that's all that's going to happen to all the BVACs. They're not going to buy new BVACs. That much I have gathered from INEC. So I just wanted to add that part to you, that it's not like the iPhones, it's just like the way we do software upgrades on our phones for a few years before the phone becomes completely outdated. That is the point I was going to make. There may be a few additional polling units, but the bulk of them were created in 2023.
Senator Lalong, you want to? Senator Bako Lalong. Well, the conduct of fair and transparent election is grounded on adequate funding of the electoral body. So adequate funding is sine qua non for the attainment of a transparent, free and fair election. So your observation that ad hoc staff are only paid 17,000 for the conduct of election, and then you are now craving for the indulgence of the committee for an increase to 170,000, 140,000, which is fair and is a step in the right direction. This committee will have to look at it and then possibly increase the budget along that line. And then also with regard to the issue of, in consonance with the new Electoral Act, once there is disqualification of a candidate, a rerun has to be conducted, so that we should anticipate series of avalanche of elections that may arise as a result of disqualification by courts, for which you need an increased funding. But as rightly observed by Senator Amos, you need to come off with line-by-line item and then justify the need for each of the increase in the letter that you are going to write to this committee. Once again, thank you very much for a very robust presentation, and you may wish to step down and join us over here as a member of the committee. Thank you. Very robust presentation of your budget. Before I invite my colleagues, distinguished senators, to make any observation, comment, or questions, I want to observe that you have alluded to the fact that there is need for an increase in your budget, especially with regard to ad hoc staff, yes, in order to insulate them from temptation, yes, during the conduct of election. I very much agree with you that there is a need for that in order to insulate them from temptation of people coming to buy vote or people compromising them. And then also the need for more funding, especially against the background of the fact that under the new Electoral Act, once there is a disqualification of a candidate by the court, there is going to be a rerun election. So, and we cannot determine the number of rerun elections that that is going to be conducted as a result of decisions of the court. So as a result of that, there is need for adequate and robust provision in the budget to take care of rerun elections that are going to be conducted in future in consonance with the new Electoral Act. But that notwithstanding, there is need for you to make a separate presentation of all these your requirements, stating their subheads, not necessarily putting it in the present submissions. Need for a separate presentation by the Secretariat so that the committee will have a look at it and make appropriate recommendations. So once again, thank you very much. I now invite any of my colleagues to, okay, Senator Lalong. Well, sorry, Senator Dicket Plank.
You are not wrong, sir.
You can sit down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sunday Marshall Katung. I represent the people of Kaduna South Senatorial District and a good neighbor of our chairman, Senator Lalong. If you listen to the commentary this morning from civil society and the press generally, a lot of ad hoc staff refused to report for this exercise, and principally because of this low pay. Because they say if you pay people peanuts, you are breeding baboons. You cannot pay 17,000 and expect anybody to leave their comfort zone to go for an election. I think it will be a disservice if this amount is not increased, which means we are preparing for a failed election if we continue this way. Because nobody out of sheer patriotism will stand up and leave his house to go and stand for 3 or 2 election cycles and say that because he loves this country so much. I usually tell people, they say Christianity is free, but you have to buy Bible. So for everything, there is an expected end. So please, let's be real and support the request for this increase, particularly for the ad hoc staff and other items that have been so listed. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yes, thank
Thank you, my chairman. Thank you, my chairman. Distinguished colleagues, let me first commend the chairman, Senate Committee on Electoral Matters for the beautiful presentation. My question or contribution will be centered on election operational cost, in particular election technology cost. And that takes us to because I believe that the essence of this is to see how this fund, if approved, will be utilized, and also the 6 billion voted for these machines. And my question is this. I feel that the Beavers machine have been acquired. I don't know whether it should be acquired every election cycle, or is it a machine that when acquired, it can be used for subsequent elections? If the answer is yes, why 170.6 billion for Beavers machine? So I think that Nigerians will need explanations on this, whether it's to reconfigure the existing ones, or we are procuring new ones, where we should know the number being procured vis-a-vis the number of polling units we have in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You may wish to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I earlier recognized and also was thanking Senator Kingibe and all the senators for a very successful election. You were not here, of the FCT, and all the members that are here. Well, as to your question on issue of voter accreditation device, yes, you know technology is not something that is static. It's always improving. Today, the telephone, ordinary telephone, iPhone that you are using last year, this year will be a different. If by the time you go, they will tell you that that one is outdated, you can't use it. So you are talking about technology, and each year there is improvement on the technology. And as there are improvement of technology, the prices also will also increase. So some of these things are the modern ones. You cannot expect to come to an election year and you are talking about last technology that you had. It may be outdated. So that is why budget is made for the modern modern technology. We don't want to have any mistake.
New innovation.
And considering new innovation. So we are looking at the future and also predicting that there are also going to be new innovations. Yes.
Meaning that INEC is going to procure new Beavers machine for all the polling units in Nigeria to meet up, according to you, with the modern technology.
Very well.
Meaning that the Beavers machine we used last 4 years,
yes,
is outdated. Is that the position?
Not all of them will be outdated. They will be substituted.
We need to know the details. We need to know the details.
They will be substituted. For instance, now you are talking of the use of IREF. So not all the machines at that time, but this time around, you have made it mandatory that IREF, that there must be transmission. So if it was optional at that time, this time it is mandatory. So they must buy the technology and sometimes look at also the technology and see whether some of them are outdated. Because in terms of technology, you know, every time there is improvement. Like I made mention of the phone today. If you are using Samsung, by next year they will tell you, this one is outdated. So the future may not go with, and this is election that is done in a particular once in a year. So you must also go with the trend of events and then the modern technology that is going to be approached.
In fact, I have been baptized, sir. Except that I may not be governor.
Why not? Incoming.
Thank you, sir.
Incoming.
Indeed, sir.
It's the grace of God. So
sir, what I wanted to add was that we have about 176,000 974 polling units in Nigeria. And last time, the bimodal machines used for national election were reconfigured for state elections, governors and House Assembly. And there was an issue in court that you need to present beavers that contain your election. And in the court, there was problem of they use beavers for national election disconfigured against national election. So I believe that we would need more of the beavers for each of the election so that the content and data in each election should be stored against any questioning. So I see a possibility of adding beavers, even if the beavers are functioning. And again, as said by our colleague, there must be need for upgrade. So I feel the amount of money has a place. We hope that it would be approved and subsequently INEC would not fail us.
Any other contribution? Okay, in that case, Lalong, you may wish to add more light for the observations and contributions that were made, then we can discharge you to go.
Well, I don't have much because I can see the understanding and also the concern about the credible elections from the Senate, from the angle of the contributions already made, especially in the light of the testing of what we have done to the people of Nigeria by the passage of the new amendment and also the new electoral act. Mr. Chairman, I'm only using this forum to appeal to Nigerians to be patient. As we passed just 2 weeks ago, and then there was election in the FCT. Well, people may talk about poor turnouts. As we mentioned, some of these are attributed to the low allowances for ad hoc staff. Some will say they are afraid to come out. No. And these low allowances is always what is discouraging them from coming out to do the work. So when this budget is passed, we made a moderate budget. But the chairman also mentioned, and some members mentioned, that we must separate. Yes, in respect to the 2026 budget, if we have our 171, it will take care of it. And all the things are already contained. Our concern was that a budget of 171 was met, but then it was cut to 140. And with these problems that we mentioned, it will be difficult to maintain that. The same thing with the general, the off-cycle elections, which we all said. We were all hoping that there will be no need if a court says somebody is disqualified. But assuming in an election, about 10 people are disqualified, it means that in that election, there will be 10 runoff. And you imagine the expenses of conducting a runoff is the same thing with an election. So if we have to do that, we have to agree to this budget. And as agreed and contributed by our distinguished senators, Mr. Chairman, I can only thank you very much and hope that this budget will be.
Talk more about this because two people already raised issues. But I think, Mr. Chairman, electoral matters, all that is being said is that if you check from page 2 of 6 down, you see in the remarks section, some of the items you say increased. And I think what the committee is saying is that you separate your envelope from the new requests. That is all the committee is saying. Present what is in your envelope as representation. Then the additional 30 billion, you write a special request for it instead of saying increased. And you write a separate letter with the budget lines of the 30 billion plus that you are requesting for, with the budget lines stating why, the justification why your budget should be increased by over 30 billion. That is all the committee is asking. And your clerk knows about it.
Okay, Senator Udende.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Emmanuel Mwemga Udende. I represent Benue Northeast. I'm member of this committee. Chairman, Electoral Matters, I want to find out, you made mention that payment to ad hoc staff is normally very low. That is why they've lost interest or people are not too much interested. How much are you paying that is low, and how much do you intend to pay that you think is reasonable for this ad hoc staff?
Thank you very much. Most distinguished. It was 17,000 naira. So you can see, if you mention 17,000 naira to anybody to go and conduct election, it is difficult for you to hack up anybody. So what they are now asking for is at least 140,000 for the period of the election, not one day.
Nationwide.
For nationwide election. So you pay him 100, even the coppers, they had a write-up and circulated to us that they are not ready to go for any 17,000. Their lives and everything are at risk to say 17,000. So initially it was 17,000, but what they are, all the ad hoc staff are asking for is an improvement from 17,000 to 140,000.
Is it 17,000 for election or for the whole election, all the elections?
For the whole election.
For the 17,000 for all the elections?
For all elections.
I agreed 28,000.
You are not wrong for calling me Senator Lalong, because my path to the Senate, he has been very instrumental. He's the reason for why I'm in the Senate. So call me Senator Lalong with small letters. Okay. Our chairman, my dear colleagues, today's Today's analysis of the election of FCT, it was specifically spelled out that one of the reasons why there were confusion and the voting apathy was low was that most of those that were trained to turn out for the election did not turn out to conduct the election because of the amount of money to be paid was not worth going out. And therefore, it was like there had to be substitutions. And because of the substitutions of those who were not trained, there was a lot of confusion. I am using this to support the issue of increment to ad hoc staff. Since what was given is no more worth, is not enough for transportation, is not even enough for them to eat outside, I feel that that issue of additional money for ad hoc should be stressed. And so again, just as you rightly said, they had 140, but they desire 171. In the other committee, just as stressed by you, the addition should be spelled out and they should be titled to where you think these additions are needed, so that if they would pick them, they would direct the excess money to those subheads. But I want to commend you for what you have done within this very tasky period of electoral bill and where we are. I think I support what he has given to us, and just for him to do the separation, I believe that this committee should support them to ensure that additional funding is done to INEC, because Nigerians are expecting very transparent election, and we should not fail them by underfunding INEC. We need maximum near perfection in the next election. Thank you, sir.